business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards.
Do not be afraid to fail.
We can
afternoon, everyone. Happy Talk Sunday. We are back with an all new episode of Tiff Talks, and I am so excited to get into the conversation today, but I do know that this, for me, is going to be a challenging one. It's been one that has been on the books for about a year, and myself and executive talk partner Ken Shea has gone back and forth with even the presentation. Like, we've had the topic, we've had in mind our guests for a year. Is just actually having the conversation that we've delayed for so many good and bad reasons. So today we are with an all new episode. And as we've discussed before, this season of Tiff Talks is all about authenticity. So it's going to be a very vulnerable conversation filled with authenticity, and one that we are going to do our best. We'll discuss some highs, we'll discuss some lows, and the hope is that we'll end up in the middle, to be very honest. For those of you that are new to this platform, my name is Tiffany. I am a licensed clinical social worker by trade and a community activist at heart. And this platform, Tiff Talks, was created as a safe haven to be able to give back to the community, to give back by providing insight, education, and awareness to taboo topics that we're already discussing in one way or another. We stand on 4 pillars, that is media, outreach, engagement, and empowerment. And we do that in various entities. And one of the main ones is through our podcast, Tiff Talks. So, today, our talk guest that is joining us is a familiar face to you all, a very dear friend of mine, an avid supporter of Tiff Talks. And I truly refer to him as my book and bottle pusher man. Like, he is one that has gifted me both at the same time and has truly changed my perspective in regards to some triggers for myself and some hot topics as well. So I'm excited to pass him the mic and allow him to introduce himself and to just give a little insight in regards to the topic that we're discussing, the state of the culture today.
And hi, Tiff Talks audience. My name is Rodney James, as you know, founder of Domino Effect, which is essentially a community outreach group. Definitely a supporter of Tiff Talks, and just my take on the state of the culture is, I don't want to say it's necessarily something that's increasing in its severity, but for me and myself, my awareness levels have gotten to a certain point where it's more so solution-based. You know, it's not one where I cry out, or, you know, I'm bitter about anything, or I you know, whine about it or say, why is this, why is that? It's strictly solution-based, you know? And so it's more of a, how do I get people on board, just on an awareness level? Because literally, like we were talking about previously, as individuals, we have to get to a certain place. This thing is a marathon. We all run at our own pace, but if we want everybody to finish, then we got to get everybody in shape. Probably not my shape, but you got to get in shape to finish, right? And so my take on the culture is, how do we get everybody in shape? You know, how do we get everybody fit to run the race, and, you know, to the point to where we can see everybody finish? And so that's my take for starters.
I love that. I love that. And that was a great introduction. One thing for me that really kind of stands out when we discuss the state of the culture is, I truly believe there's no true expert when it comes down to the state of the culture. We are all a sum of our own experiences. And as a sum of our own experiences, we're only experts of those experiences. And even when it comes down to experiences, you have to really make note of the context, of the perception, of the various things that come in with experience, because they're all a sum of our own. We live and still live in a pretty a hyper segregated environment. We live in a place where disparities amongst those that look like me and you are really, really high. There's racial intensity that is at an all-time high. And for me personally, when writing and when kind of drafting this outline, I was in a place where I'm kind of like, I guess, wounded to a certain extent, because I see so much good on one continuum, in that we've come far. And in it being Black History Month, majority of the conversation is past tense. And we're in this state of look how far the Lord has brought us type thing. But then again, I see the stuff are the things that hurt me as a Black woman, as a wife of a Black man, as a mother of Black children. And it puts me in a state of mind where I have a lot of fears. And I'm very, transparent with saying that I have fears with being where we are, but also the haste to what we may become. And I have fears of my boys growing up. I have fears of what they learn from their own experiences. And as much as I want to shelter them or keep them or hold them so they don't experience or am wounded by the things that I've been wounded or even see, I just get to a point where I'm like, how do we even define where we are as a culture? So my first question to really just open up the dialogue and the conversation is, if there is one word that you would have to describe the state of the culture, what would that word be?
Scary. Scary would be the word. It's you touched on a few things there. Context, perception, even in the aspect of the introduction you gave, where you mentioned books. It made me think about the symposium. Mm-hmm. It made me think about the health fair, where I came there as the book boy, right? And I had all these things that were essentially benefits of reading, mm-hmm. which is why the book boy was formed. And we can get into context as far as why the nonprofit was formed and all these other things. It's formed based on experience. Mm-hmm. And if you put everything into context, it all makes sense, right? But one of the benefits of reading, just a quick tidbit, is you learn to empathize, right? Mm. That's a major thing, because if you don't have that, then you only perceive what you know. Mm. Like what you've been through, what you experienced, when we know the world to be way bigger than that.
Right.
Now, books give you a gateway into millions of stories, millions of lives, millions of experiences, and you don't have to put your feet on the ground in those places. But if you can read about it and you can understand the context of it, then you can apply it to yourself. And you can apply it to the people you come across. And I think I use the word scary because here, we set out these goals to essentially create platforms to make people aware and, bring information to people that they wouldn't normally have. And it's like you want to grow a community, essentially. Mm-hmm. And all while growing and building, you see destruction, you see destroying. Mm-hmm. And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
because there's always going to be opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, history repeats itself. All of these things, or, you know, they're sayings for a reason if you put them in the context. You don't want to believe it, but there's nothing new under the sun. You know, it's like all these things, and you're like, hey, here I am in this situation. Maybe it's just a different generation. I'm older, you know, I'm more passionate, I'm more compassionate, but still you encounter somebody that has no compassion at all. You encounter the most selfish people to walk the earth. You encounter everything that's the opposite of yourself. And for me, I've learned that that's nothing new. No matter the task at hand, that's not a new thing. It can still be scary because it's going to catch you off guard. But if you read about, you know, we're in Black History Month, you read about Martin Luther King, you read about Malcolm X, no matter what they were doing, they were up against something equally as negative, and it was scary, I'm sure. And so there's nothing new under the sun. It should be expected. And especially if you're serious about what you're doing, you're up for the challenge. But it's still scary. Because for me, as of late, right, and I've been kind of doing my own little personal dive into the thinking of others, the mind frame of others. It's scary to know how other people's brains function because it's not there. And if you know that, or if you learn that, then you learn how people are susceptible to all of this stuff: movies, music, what they see outside, what they see on TV. Like, you learn how people copy, people pick up these things. Kids, like, it's literally grown-ups walking around with brains that are not developed. They're like kids, and they take in things. People walk around like they have their own opinions, and they don't. They start on a video, and now when you have a conversation with them, the conversation has to be 1 minute long because the TikTok video was 1 minute long. They don't know anything past that. And so we walk around like that, and here we are thinking that we could put people on another level. Meanwhile, they don't even have the level that they act like they're on. And that's the scary part, because for me, it says, man, it's going to be a little tougher than I thought. All right, so let's not start here. Let's go back. Who are you? What do you like to do? What are you good at? You know, things like that. It becomes really scary when you learn, you know, where you're at. Like, no different than a teacher coming into a 5th grade class, a reading class, and learning that all her kids are on a 1st grade reading level. This is going to be challenging. You know, and if you're passionate about teaching, you're up for the challenge. It's still scary that you're in the 5th grade class with students at a 1st grade reading level, but you're up for the challenge. And, you know where to start. They're on the 1st grade reading level. Let's start there and build it up. So in the cases of, you know, some of the things that we do, the solution is not that simple, you know, but if you ask the right questions, you can get where you need to go and know where you need to start. So, but
that's good. That's good. My word would be like coping, because I feel we live. I mean, I know that I'm not alone in living in this state of fear when it comes to the culture, what we see, what we know, what we feel. But I feel that we've come numb to a lot of things. It's kind of like
desensitized, for sure.
Yes. It's like we've become used to things as they are. And we've learned to cope instead of, like you said, taking on that challenge, knowing what the challenge is, and then going back to the basics to say, how can I be, or how can I render a solution? And for me, like, just in the world around us, with the rate of crime being what it is, with Black on Black crime being what it is, and we, you know, in our pregame discussion, I was just sharing that when I saw the Tyree Nichols story, like it hurt me. It hurt me as a woman, as a Black woman. It hurt me as a part of the community and someone that truly believes in community, because I felt a lot of anger, but also I felt a lot of shame. And my shame stemmed from like, how did we get here? Like, why are we here with Black on Black crime? Like, why is it this? Why is it someone that is a person of authority, a person that has a badge, that's sworn to serve and protect, that looks like me, but that harms me? And I know that, it's more common than we know, or more common than we want to say or report back, because I'm sure he's not the first person that has experienced that. He was a headline, and it's sad to me that in order for there to be this rally cry, or for there to be this change or shift, for people to make note of, it has to come by way of someone losing their life, or someone being harmed, or someone having to leave a legacy way too soon. And one person that I'm very fond of when it comes down to the culture and their perspective and their take on the culture is D.L. Hughley. Like, I love him. Long before he started being as vocal as he has been, I've had a fond love for him. But watching him on The Breakfast Club and him speaking about it, I think he said it best that I can resonate with, and saying that when a Black person dies, they die 1,000 deaths, because they die in legacy, they die in life, they die with the lives that they touched, and they die with the memories that they've had. So for me, when I think about these things, and when we talk about what we see over here with representation, knowing that we have the power of the Black dollar and that we have all this greatness within us, but on the other end of the spectrum, this foolishness that we see, the things that bring us shame to our culture, to our family, to generations, then what imagery does that give to the Black culture? What imagery does that give to the next generation? What imagery does that give to our counterparts? So I'm interested to know your take. What do you feel this spectrum of good and bad, highs and lows, where do we fall in the middle, if there is a middle, of the imagery that Black culture gives?
I don't know if that's something we can control. There's this thing called power, right? And I don't want to say we don't have any power, but we don't use our power. And the only way to use it, to properly use power, is to be united. That's not one of our strong suits as a culture. I think I was listening to a pod or something recently, and I want to say it was maybe Most Def or somebody speaking about the culture. And of course, he was talking about music, but I associate music with our culture because I think hip hop culture is pop culture. It's the popular thing, right? But he was talking about how certain things are glorified and others aren't. He would be one that would be known as a conscious rapper, but when you look on TV or radio or, these streaming platforms, what's sold to you is killing Dylan and everything in between, right? But he was talking about the why, right? The why is we have to sell you something. Now, the crazy part, the powers that be that run that industry are so tapped into our culture that they know our spending power, right? So see for yourself, listen to music, and in our music that we listen to, we sell lifestyle, we sell luxury, we sell everything. So people listen to music to know where to go, where to eat, where I'm gonna travel to, what car I should drive, what shoes I should wear. My shirt should say Amiri. I should have Amiri jeans on. I should have the Louis V bucket hat. And it's like you start listening, and it's like, oh wow, I like this song, but I'm listening to it, and yeah, it is selling me something. I do need a AMG, and I do need red seats, and it's like you wonder why you're attracted to these things as a man and a woman. And if you can think of how a man and a woman is attracted to it, you definitely got to know why a kid is attracted to it. So for me, I don't know if we could, if we're not united, then it's more so we can't control it. And that's the really, really scary part, to know what the issue is. You could scream it from every corner, you can put it on every TV, no different than Netflix being an app on everybody's phone and TV, and you could literally have it sitting there and no one would click on it. Like, hey, if you click on this, it will unite us as a people, and we could use our power to our full strength, and we would get somewhere. We wouldn't click on it.
That is scary.
It's scary.
That's
right?
very scary.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you make the conscience attractive?
For
like
sure.
how do you make these things attractive? And I think for me, because with this platform, what we've worked so very hard to model and give space for is representation. That is the reason why the Community Empower magazine was started, because I needed to give representation for my daughter to see that there are people that looks just like me, just like you, that are in industries that you desire to be in. And you don't have to go to Mac. You don't have to go to Barnes and Noble. Like, you don't have to go to these big quote unquote industry places to spend your money or to give your money or invest your money, when you should be investing your money, your time, your sales, your thoughts, your interest in places that are going to move not only you, but the culture, the representation forward. So I don't know, honestly, how do we make our culture attractive? I do know, and I think one thing that we lack as a culture is what they had back in the day before culture was even a language, was having institutions, having these safe havens, having these safe spaces where people would come and there was a meeting of the minds, where there was a meeting of being able to bring people together, whether it be in church or religion or politics or social, or like our ancestors, I don't even know if we can call them our ancestors, but those before us were able to create these safe spaces where we took up space and everyone there was all driven by the same motive to make a change or make a shift. So we don't have those spaces as safe as much anymore, at least not that I see, because like you said, it's this individuality thing that everybody wants or desires or thirsts, where we're not so much on the same page to be a part of a community.
That's by design, That's what I see when I look at a lot of this stuff. I see design. I see systemic everything. Somebody somewhere put these things in place to where, divide and conquer is a real thing. Willie Lynch was a real person,
Hmm.
where they had these tactics and these things in place where if you do this psychologically, it messes with the mind enough, it disrupts it enough to say, hey, yeah, we're not going to do that. Take Black Wall Street, for example. Perfect example where you have thriving culture, right? Uh, everybody on one accord, everybody doing their own thing, their own passions, but pulling together to form a community. And the powers that be disrupted. And not only did they disrupt it, they put things in place where we'll never see it again.
Mm.
Right? So, hey, we're going to destroy this city, but not only will we destroy this city, we see what you guys do with your money. So instead of you shopping at your stores or rebuilding this place that y'all built up, you can come and shop at our stores now. So you may have a handful of people, the aware people that say, hey, man, it's probably better if we rebuild this thing. But it's more people who say, hey, man, I could go over to that store. It's cleaner, it's bigger, they got more options. It's on the nicer side of town, and I can shop over there now. So maybe I should go over there. And one of the bigger questions I ask, and I think this is culture, it goes across every culture, where it's this classic battle of good versus evil, right?
Mm.
But how do you make being neutral unacceptable?
Mm.
How do you make being neutral unacceptable? Because let's say, you go across the line and say, hey, with white culture, you have racists and you have people that are not racist, that voice it, right? You have way more people that say, hey, I'm not getting involved in that. I'm not even going to get involved. That's why we see certain things like police brutality, where there's people that stand on the line and say, hey, man, that's wrong. You seen them when we went marching after George Floyd, and they were out there. But then there was some that wasn't out there. There was some that voiced that, hey, man, this guy was a criminal and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, that's how you feel? But there were way more that didn't say anything, and that's the issue. In our culture, we have those that are awake, we have those that are bad, and then we have those in the middle that don't say anything. And they're perfectly fine with it. And that's the issue. How do you make being neutral unacceptable? Like, I need you to pick a side, because at least if you pick a side, I know what I'm up against.
That's true. It's very true. I remember like early on in my career attending a conference, a bullying in school conference. And we talked a great deal about the bully and the bystander and who was the most dangerous. And most people would say, oh, it's the bully. The bully is the most dangerous. No, it's the bystander, because the bystander will know something is wrong and not take responsibility to speak up or to say something. And for me, the shame that came with those police officers that were involved in the Tyrese Nichol case was the bystanders. It's like, in my head, I'm thinking like, how are y'all friends? Like, how nobody said this, not right. Like, nobody was like, yeah, we're not going to do that. Like, where are your loved ones? Where is your mom? Where is your dad? Where are your children? Where are the people that, you look to and who look to you? So that is a hard part and a hard pill to swallow. And I think to move our discussion along, because we shouldn't just leave them here. Like we've talked the highs, we've talked the lows, we talked about the power that we have and the lack thereof use of said power. But for this state and for this day and this time and for this talk time, it's really important that we get into a culture shift. Like, what do we do? How can we, as a person, as a being, because I truly believe in order for us to be better and to do better, like, we have to be effective. We have to be efficient in our practice. And even those that are bystanders, even those that are neutral, in whatever stand they take or don't stand, they have to be clear in understanding that whatever they do or don't is going to impact the next generation. And because it impacts the next generation, then this is going to impact your sister. This is going to impact your cousin. This is going to impact your children. This is going to impact your dollars, your thing, like anything that matters to you. It is going to impact that. And for me personally, I believe that it's no way that I can see something, know something, and not take responsibility to do something. And everybody doesn't have to think like me or be me. I can be aware. It doesn't mean that you don't have to. Or you, it's just, I think for me is, how do we get to a point where we can create or ignite the cultural shift that we see after the George Floyd, after the Tyrese Nichols, after the Tamir Wright? Like, how do we keep that flame going?
How do we do that? We keep running into this wall of, I don't want to say impossible, of this impossible task that we like to dawn on ourselves. We believe and think of ourselves so much that we could literally lift up millions and millions of people in every town, every city, everywhere, that we would be felt. And it's crazy, right? Because in situations like the one that just happened, or George Floyd, or you see worldwide effect.
Right.
So you can't say it's impossible. But how can we put a movement in place to where it's not centered around a murder that we've seen on camera? It's centered around good information that we can all use. And if we do this one thing, we'd be better tomorrow. Some sort of initiative or anything, that's the question.
Yeah.
But it's not attractive. We could say, hey man, everybody, go get some life insurance. Don't think about it. Don't ask me nothing. Just go get $100,000 worth for everybody. Something like that changes the spectrum entirely. We lose people all the time. And, your boy, I think it was DL that said, DL or Chris Rock, one of them, where, when we die, we leave a bill, not a will.
Yep. Very true.
It's like these things culturally affect us. But as far as solution, which is where I like to focus, it becomes this, how do you do it? And I always think about the people that I can actually touch, the people I can actually talk to. The same way you look at those officers and say, hey, where's your people that can touch you? Because I can't.
Right.
First, you got to realize you can't. As much as you want change, as much as you want, things to go a certain way or things to be said, you can't do it. But somebody should be there to do it. So for us, it becomes this thing of, who can I touch? Who can I get to read this book? I know we all should read this book, but personally, who can I get to read this book? Because if I can do that, then I did my job. I did my part. Now, when we get into that, it's not enough aspect, that's totally different, because now that's a personal thing where we want to do more and more and more and more. It's not enough. I didn't reach enough people. Not enough people seen this video. Not enough people got this information. That's a personal thing that some people have, not all people. Some people cool with helping one person, and that's good enough. That's literally good enough, because if one person helped another person and everybody did that, then problem solved. That's just not how it works, because we still have that gray area, that the neutral. But for me, how do we shift it? It becomes how do we impact the people we know? Because if I can have a positive impact on my nephew who's in another generation, then I feel a little better. I may not affect his whole generation, but maybe he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it becomes really, who can you touch with the right information? And hell, say if I go, I think it's something in our culture where we lack vision. And when I say vision, I mean seeing beyond ourselves. Seeing
That's
beyond big. Our lifetime. Previous leaders beforehand, even people like Tupac would say, hey, I'm gonna die before my time. But this is this, and that is that. Malcolm X said it. I feel death on me. But the things that I'm doing, should I stop doing them? Yeah. I'm doing this for something beyond me. It's going to last longer than my life. Same for everybody that voiced an opinion, that was, helpful. The entire civil rights movement. This is for people that's going to come after me. I might literally die sitting in this restaurant just to get the point across. But maybe my son's son will be able to sit in this place and nobody look at him crazy. Now, the culture we live in today, we can't see beyond ourselves. So, no, we're not gonna gear up the next generation for, to continue what we want to continue. We don't even lay the groundwork, let alone gear them up. So something like life insurance, way too many of our people stress about finances. We stress about finances. So say, hey, let me take that stress away from you so you could focus on the mental part, because that's a major part, probably the biggest. The mental part is going to be hard enough. So let me take the finance part away from you. And if we all did that, then we would be in a better place. But I think it's more so, to answer your question directly, it starts, the shift starts with who you can touch. And if you could reach across generations, for somebody like you have kids, so it's right there. Yeah. It's reach where I'm literally going to affect a generation beyond me.
Right.
And once you do that, that's where the actual shift starts. It literally always starts with the kids. If you can shift the kids' minds, hopefully they'll shift the next generation after them, and so on and so forth.
I love that. I knew you was going to take me to a nice, happy median, and I appreciate that. And that for me is the nice, happy median in understanding and hearing you say that it starts with those that I can touch. And really, I appreciate in understanding that, are moving away from that thought process that is not enough, like being comfortable with what is enough for me. If I can touch the people in my household, if I can touch the people that, are in my inner circle, if I can touch my nieces and my nephews and give to them, then they can continue it going. And I think for me, it's something that Steve Harvey said some time ago when talking about legacy and wills and money and what he's leaving to his children. Is not the physical aspect. It's not a dollar that you can spend that would do any more justice that you leave to anyone. Is what you instill in them. And I think for me, That's why I don't mind working hard and bringing my kids along for the ride to work hard, because I want them to be able to see this and understand that if I get no further than where I am now, then they can pick up that baton and continue it. And that for me is the happy medium. That's definitely the happy medium.
That's something. So like for me personally, right? I think about what I remember, right? We all had our experiences, and for me, I simply think about what I remember that had an effect on me. And I can think back to, elementary, middle school, of course, high school for sure. I think about it's these key moments where it's like, man, like I told you the story of me being maybe about 12 years old and having a teacher that said, form the question and go find the answer. Yeah. I remember it. And it was an assignment. So I had to do it. And I literally have that with me every day from this person who I don't know if they're still alive, where they are, but I remember and I use it. And so if I know that's possible, then I'll try to shoot that shot as much as possible. I'll pick up my nephew, we'll go to the bookstore, say, hey, pick out a good book, do it on your own. We can do all the random things in the world. But my only hope is that not that you catch on to it, because you may not use it right now, but maybe you'll remember and this will become a habit of yours because you remember. Yeah. My uncle told me to, on days like this, come to the bookstore, grab a book and do this, write about it. You might not, I don't expect him to do it now. He's a kid. He want to have fun. He want to laugh. He want to dance. He want to watch TikTok. All of that is cool. But I think because of how I remember, maybe one day he'll remember that, no, let me go grab a book today. Let me write about it. Let me write how I feel. Let me tell somebody about it. And so I try to do that as much as possible, where it becomes this thing that's engraved in you versus just something you've seen one time before. And so
okay.
It's definitely
all right.
Touch.
Yes. All right, talk audience. Well, we've made it to our happy medium. We've gone high, we've talked some lows, and we're in the mid piece of it. And as we kind of wrap up the discussion, for me, I think the biggest thing that we as a culture could tune or could really find a better way of becoming accustomed to and sharing is building trust. And as we talk about, touching those that we can, about having compassion, about finding a place where we can feel safe and have these discussions and give of ourselves for the next generation. I think it's important that community building or not, that we find a way to build trust. And I truly believe it starts with trust. So for me and my interests, what and how do you feel we as a community can start to build trust within our culture?
I think that's going to come from leadership. People need something to follow. And so historically, and I keep bringing up these guys, I don't know if it's because it's Black History Month or what, but, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, these are selfless leaders. You have to be a selfless leader. Farrakhan is another one that's present, but he's been around for a long time, where he has a following. And people follow and they trust to follow because they have a selfless leader. If we can have a selfless, like in your household, you're a selfless leader. You know what I mean? Like you literally have to be, as a good parent, you have to be a selfless leader. You got to put these little people in front of you every day. And so when it comes to, this thing about culture, people, we know that people follow. We see it every day.
Mm-hmm.
We're on social media that literally has a button that says
It's
follow.
follow, yes.
Says follow right
Yes.
there, right? So we know people have that mindset of, oh, I follow such and such, So I think it's up to us to figure out how to transform that into something real. It's like, no, people follow podcasts, they follow social media, they follow news stories, they follow everything.
Yeah.
And we know this to be true. So if we're going to build this trust thing, we know that people are looking to follow, then we need to give them something to follow, and that it goes back to us in having this impact on our own circles, the people we can touch, but that's how it grows. That's literally how everything grows. It grows from something small. It could start with your own circle, but it could grow into, their circles in your circle and their circles in your circle. It just has to be something that's worth following for one. And to your word, it has to be trusted. And it can only be trusted by a selfless leader.
Yeah. I love that. For me, and I guess my experience in building trust, what I'm learning is to make sure that I value and stand on the power that I have in taking up space. So when you talk about having something that's trusted, something that's worth following for me is, regardless of what space I'm in, to make sure that I take up that space and that I zone in on that power and understanding that I have that power, and that the power that I have, make sure that that trusted power is not to harm or hinder anyone. I'm big in this, I guess, this year of my life and taking up space and making sure that the space that I take up and the space that I occupy is space where I am comfortable in making sure that I stand on my own power and stand on my work. Whether that space that I occupy is me by myself or me with the community, me with a small group of people, me with two people, just being able to zone in on their power. And like you said, being able to touch who I can touch and be okay with that, knowing that that is enough.
Mm-hmm.
That is enough. This has been so good. I knew it was gonna be good. I knew it. That's why your name was on the books for a whole year. We just, I feel like I needed to find the coverage. I needed to find the courage. Because Kinshay, she'll push. She has no problem with pushing me. But I needed to find the courage to have this conversation and to face, my own fears in a very transparent and a very real manner, and have it with someone that I trust. So I appreciate you being a trusted party for me and for sharing this talk time. As we wrap up every talk episode, there's always a portion that, we want to make sure that we give to our audience a takeaway. So we've talked a lot in this last 45 minutes to an hour, but what is your takeaway that you want to make sure that the audience, those that are viewing today, those that are going to watch the playback, what do you want them to be clear on taking away and to carry with them from this conversation?
I would first say, don't be neutral. I read this book a while back that basically one of the instructions in the book was to be clear on your opinions, which mean don't just take it from somebody. If that's how you feel, think about it, harp on it, dig into it so you could say, hey, no, I feel this way because of this, right? So that whole neutral thing gets thrown out of the window. I'm not neutral. I like it or I don't like it. One of the other things to take from this would be that if you have a passion for what we spoke about, shifting the culture, making people aware of positive things, not negative things, if you're aware, then Form think tanks.
Mm.
Align with like-minded people. Don't make the task this mountain that you have to climb.
Mm.
You know, make it more of a hurdle that you can jump. You know, make it a step that you can just use one foot and just step up. And it doesn't seem like this grandiose task, because when it does, you're tired way before you get started.
Right.
You know, so I want people to more so align, because everybody's out there giving out information on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. You should start this, don't start this, don't go that way, go this way. Find your own way. Align with people that are going in that direction, and don't make it so hard on yourself, because the world don't care about making it hard on you. You don't make it hard on you. Right? So that'll be what I would want the audience to take away from it. Don't make it so hard on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. You know, it's a marathon.
That's good. That's good. I love it. I love it. I knew what we kind of talked about in our very first episode is that this season is a season of alignment. And I can almost bet in the conversations I look forward to that coming up, alignment, and what that looks like for everyone. And I encourage it for myself, for my peer group, for those that I can touch, and for those that, you know, I have an impact on. What really has stood out to me and what I take away is being able to find a happy median in where we are, and understanding that that's enough. Mm-hmm. That's enough to be able to carry to the next stage, and finding empathy for where we are. I may not outlive what state of the culture that we're in, or even the cultural shift that I would hope will come about one day. I may not live to see that, but having empathy for what it will be, or what I would like for it to be, and touching my kids, touching my nieces, my nephews, my circle, that for me, I am growing for it to be enough. Mm-hmm. And understanding, like you said, it's a marathon. I don't have to be in a haste. I have to do my part to give back, and do my part and stand in that to occupy the space that I have the power to impact.
That's a big one. You know, trust in what you're doing, and be okay with knowing that you may not see the results of what you're doing, but you're doing it for a reason, a real good reason.
That's good. Well, thank you, Rodney, so very much for taking the time to be a part of this conversation, and for, as I mentioned, just being, like we talked about throughout this discussion, a trusted ally, someone that we can align with, and that I'm so grateful and happy to have crossed paths with and to align with. We pride ourselves on being conversation starters. And I truly believe that this conversation that we've had this afternoon is a conversation starter for many people to continue the conversation to come. And I hope to impact and to share and touch others. And I will follow up with our announcements. We are in a great space and place with Tiff Talks, and there are a lot of things that are happening, including Gold Sisters that is just around the corner, which is actually next Saturday. The Eventbrite and registration is now up and available for everyone to be able to complete their registration. It is free registration, and we will be at the Southside Sporting Club in Stafford to talk goals, to talk sisterhood, to have mimosas, and just all around a good time. There are Q1 boxes that are available. They are not required, but definitely recommended and appreciated. So please head over to the link in the bio to in our IG in order to complete your registration, and Eventbrite as well to be a part of the Gold Sisters social Another great thing that Kinshay and I have been working on is our visionary planner, but also our visionary retreat. And this coming Wednesday, March the 1st, we will be releasing details regarding both. So you do not want to miss out on Talk Tuesdays. A lot of information will be shared, a lot of clarification, insight, and just great things will be shared, including the landing space for our 2023-2024 visionary retreat. So I'm excited about that. And then, of course, we're going to be re-releasing our very first Community Empower magazine on March the 11th in honor of International Women's Day. So be on the lookout for that, with all things that are happening during the month of March. But first, of course, starting with Wednesday, as we have a Talk Tuesdays on the Wednesday to just share all the good that's been going on. I encourage everyone to remain connected on our social media platforms, which are here in the TV, which of course is our IG at JAYKC Marketing. And then of course, YouTube for the podcast, which is JAYK, the letter KC podcast. And then of course, we're back on Facebook. So Facebook, which is at JAY Kencole, KENCOLE Marketing LLC. So please remain connected. And as I mentioned, we pride ourselves on on being conversation starters. And as we've shared this time together, we encourage you to keep talking. Have a good evening, everybody.